based on your conversations with Steve yesterday, do you get a sense that Jakob Chychrun in the next 23 hours and 43 minutes is on the move?
So let's try and decode. Look, Steve Staios is a very deliberate, meticulous guy in his messaging. So let's try and decode.
It's very different, eh, Mendes?
Right? Yeah, it's night and day. Like I'm not running to make memes now as soon as the press conference is over. He is absolutely a very polished, very deliberate speaker. And he said, we don't have anything imminent on Jakob Chychrun or anything active on Jakob Chychrun. I thought that was interesting. I think the fact, guys, Jakob Chychrun was in the lineup yesterday. Let's be honest, given what the trade might be and the importance of that type of trade, wouldn't you agree you would bubble wrap him at this point? You wouldn't put a guy out there. So my guess is you're going to circle back on this. I think if I learned anything out about the Tarasenko deal, it's that, look, okay, you're backed into a corner. You didn't get a great return. Fine. But with Chychrun, you're not backed into a corner. You have leverage. Use it. Don't be forced into anything this week for the sake of it. So if I had to guess, I'm going to guess no. But if somebody comes to him in the next, whatever you said, 23 hours and change, and says, okay, I'll give you a first and a premium prospect and a roster player, and you give us Chychrun, well, maybe that does give you pause for thought. But I don't know. I think the fact that he's likely playing tonight makes me think that he's going to be here past 3 p.m. on Friday.
My only question on leverage and the way that you think about things, like you hold all the cards really because you have a player for another year at a really good cap hit, but does a certain leverage come into say where we have 2 playoff runs and as opposed to one with a player? Yes, that's my question on leverage, Ian. Where you're probably way more versed than I am on that, but like if I'm a team that's in the mix, I want them for 2 years as opposed to 1 at 4 point, whatever it is.
Yeah, and especially now if Ottawa, imagine the value of Jakob Chychrun if Ottawa retained 25%, 50%. Now you're talking about multiple assets that should be coming back. So yeah, absolutely. I think there's value in that for sure. I just think the problem is at this time of year, don't you guys find general managers are so fixated on like short-term rental, like nobody trades for guys with term. It's like, I don't know. So my guess is no, but it does make a ton of sense that like this, you probably make the argument that his value will never be higher, right? Like that argument.
It has to be the highest, right? You think right now, sorry to interrupt you, but you have to think that the highest it gets is right this second.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
I agree. And by the way, for anybody who like, we did try to speak to Jake, like we put the request in to speak to Jakob Chychrun today in LA. He said, "Hey, thanks, but no thanks," and that's fine. And I get that. Like it must be frustrating to be, open up your phone or whatever, and you see various trade bait boards on different networks and platforms, and you're in there, and people are speculating. This is your life, right? This isn't fantasy hockey. This is your life that you're talking about. So I understand. I completely respect his decision to say, you know what, guys, thanks, but no thanks. And maybe we'll get you after the deadline.
Well, don't forget, he's gone through it for like the last 2 years or whatever. Like it's constantly having to deal with that. So I can appreciate him not wanting to talk. And I know he was excited to come back to Ottawa and for all that to happen. But in the business sense, you really sense, I just sense that Steve Staios is not tied to Jakob Chychrun whatsoever. Just based on his comments of saying, if I was on the opposite side, I would be calling about him too. Just knows that there is movable asset there for him to try and rebuild this group.
But don't you guys feel like he shouldn't be tied to anybody like that? If you have one benefit right now of being Steve Staios and Dave Poulin, is you shouldn't be emotionally attached to anybody.
None.
You should be able to come in. Like, you know what? We always look at Vegas. Don't we look at Vegas and say, like, man, how do those guys get to be where they are? You know why? Because they're not emotionally attached to anybody. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. And I think Steve has a little window here where he cannot be emotionally attached to anybody and make some really calculated, shrewd moves. After that, you do become I think, emotionally attached to some players, and then you want to protect them, you want to do right by them, all that stuff. But right now, I think you have a little window where you're not married. You didn't draft any of these guys. You didn't sign any of these guys. They're not on you. So you want to make a move? Now's your time.